Hey Spurs fans, welcome back to another update on our San Antonio Spurs. Before we jump into today's breaking news, make sure to subscribe and hit the like button. That way, you'll never miss the latest stories, big announcements, and exclusive Spurs coverage. The night in the frozen city of Minneapolis at first seemed like just another ordinary commitment in the middle of a punishing schedule. Yet as the minutes slipped away on the clock, it became evident that something extraordinary was about to unfold before the attentive eyes of thousands of spectators who filled every seat inside the arena, reacting to each possession as if they were witnessing the birth of a new chapter in the recent history of the home franchise, guided by a masterful and dominant performance from its leading star, who displayed near-surgical precision in his offensive attacks, converting the vast majority of his attempts and establishing a rhythm that simply could not be ignored. As the contest progressed, the home team found in its natural leader an inexhaustible source of confidence, someone who cut through the opposing defense with a hypnotizing blend of speed, strength, and control, amassing more than 36 points with unsettling efficiency, as if every shot were being directed by a carefully written script, leaving the defensive structure completely disoriented and every fan inside the building in a state of rising euphoria with each successful conversion. At his side, an equally inspired teammate embraced the role of orchestrator, delivering more than a dozen decisive passes while also adding more than 20 units to the scoreboard, creating a nearly poetic form of chemistry on the floor, as if the two were connected by an invisible thread that transcended any tactical instruction or rehearsed movement, granting the game a rare, flowing elegance seldom witnessed. Even those coming off the bench rose to the occasion with remarkable personality, contributing meaningful scoring, renewed energy, and immediate impact that pushed the team into an overwhelming surge at precisely the moment the opponent still believed it could dictate the final outcome, increasing both the drama and the psychological shock of what was still to come. On the opposite side, the visiting squad, despite being deprived of key figures due to physical setbacks, refused to surrender easily, finding in its primary ball handler an extremely efficient performance, converting most of his attempts and surpassing 24 points, supported by two other players who also crossed the 20-point threshold, keeping the matchup balanced through much of the battle. At a certain moment during the third segment, the visitors even managed to hold a significant advantage, sustained by a perimeter conversion following a beautifully crafted passing sequence, opening up a gap that appeared large enough to neutralize any late response, causing a great portion of the home crowd to hold its breath, already fearing a frustrating and silent conclusion. It was precisely there, however, that the turnaround was born. The young prospect of the home roster stepped to the free throw line and calmly converted his attempts, trimming the margin and igniting a spark of hope in the stands, transforming that tense silence into a thunderous roar loaded with expectation. As if propelled by that renewed spirit, the home players returned for the final period with overwhelming intensity, opening the last 12 minutes with unexpected movements, improvised shots, and accurate executions, seizing the lead for the first time since the earliest stages of the contest, spreading the sensation that the game had just begun a completely new chapter. In the most devastating sequence of the night, an uninterrupted run of points was constructed from a perfect long-range strike, followed by two explosive finishes at the rim, turning a slight advantage into a deeply uncomfortable margin for any recovery attempt, accompanied by a collective eruption from the crowd, who could already taste victory. And when it still seemed there might be some window for response, a second merciless surge expanded the distance even further, combining another perimeter conversion, a powerful slam, and yet another crushing drive to the basket, erecting a barrier that was nearly impossible to overcome on opposing ground. Even with two made free throws by the visiting side in a last effort to keep the deficit under double figures, that moment proved to be the final instance in which any realistic hope remained, because from that point forward, absolute control of the game belonged, unquestionably, to the hosts. Ironically, balance had defined the first half of the encounter, which ended with the visitors holding the narrowest of margins, a detail that only made the transformation witnessed later even more striking, sealing the final period as a true showcase of resilience, eruption, and tactical supremacy. All of this unfolded even in the absence of three important names on the Texan roster, all sidelined by physical issues that crippled their rotation and defensive intensity, making it unmistakably clear that the depth of the home squad and its collective force were decisive in producing the overwhelming outcome. What began as an apparently ordinary night concluded as a resounding demonstration of offensive power, resilience, and the ability to turn the tide, sending a clear message to the entire league. One should never doubt the capacity for reaction of a group fueled by talent, pride, and an insatiable hunger for victory, especially when the brightest lights are aimed at the stage and every remaining second carries the weight of a historic decision. Before we go on, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. Your support keeps our Spurs coverage strong and brings you the latest updates straight from San Antonio. And jump into the comments. Tell us what you think about today's news. In the earliest, almost surreal hours of the morning in San Antonio, when the city still breathes in a quiet rhythm and the streets remain wrapped in a soft pre-sunrise haze, an electrifying murmur began to travel through the basketball world, not as a confirmed announcement, but as an intoxicating wave of possibility. The idea that the San Antonio Spurs were on the verge of executing a stunning double signing, bringing both Stephen Curry and Kevin Durant into their orbit on long-term three-season commitments, an idea so audacious that it instantly commanded the attention of fans, analysts, former players, and rival franchises alike, all struggling to comprehend a scenario that would redefine the very architecture of the modern NBA. The air surrounding the Spurs organization shifted palpably as whispers grew louder and sources close to the situation hinted at unprecedented conversations unfolding behind closed doors, discussions that extended far beyond standard negotiations and into the realms of legacy, vision, and the reshaping of a franchise's future, because acquiring even one of those legendary names would be considered history-altering. Yet the mere prospect of landing both in a single, coordinated move ignited a kind of feverish excitement that had not been felt in Texas for decades. San Antonio, a team long associated with structure, discipline, and methodical dominance through eras defined by selfless systems rather than sheer star magnetism, suddenly found itself at the center of a narrative driven by two of the most influential and recognizable figures of their generation, raising the tantalizing question of what would happen if the Spurs' traditionally measured identity became the foundation upon which two of the most explosive offensive weapons in basketball history were unleashed. Stephen Curry, widely regarded as the architect of the three-point revolution, represents more than just shooting excellence. He symbolizes the complete re-engineering of spacing, tempo, and strategic imagination within a modern game, and the suggestion that he could bring that transformative presence to the Spurs for 3 full seasons sent a shockwave through coaching circles, because it implied that San Antonio might soon operate with an offensive gravitational pull capable of stretching defenses to a breaking point they had never before experienced. At the same time, the rumored arrival of Kevin Durant carries with it an entirely different but equally formidable weight, as his unmatched combination of size, skill, and fluid scoring ability would provide the Spurs with a near unstoppable force on the perimeter and in isolation situations, a player who can score at will against any type of coverage, turning even the best defensive schemes into fragile illusions in the face of his precision and calm efficiency. For those watching from the outside, the possibility of both players signing 3-year deals in San Antonio feels less like a simple roster move and more like a seismic realignment of power, one that would abruptly shift the Spurs from a rebuilding or developing narrative into the immediate conversation of championship contenders, forcing the entire league to reevaluate its predictions, strategies, and hierarchies almost overnight. Within the city itself, the mood has evolved from curiosity to outright wonder, as fans replay rumors in their minds, imagining what it would be like to witness Curry's limitless range combined with Durant's unstoppable scoring touch on a court that has already seen its fair share of legends, picturing a fusion of generations and styles that could turn every home game into a global spectacle. Even without official confirmation, The enthusiasm pulsing from the Spurs fan base has created an atmosphere that feels almost celebratory, as if the city has collectively decided to believe in the possibility, to lean into the dream of a new era defined by superstars, choosing San Antonio not as a quiet destination, but as a bold stage for the next act of their historic careers. Inside the organization, the potential arrival of such iconic veterans signals more than a bid for immediate success. It suggests the establishment of a living classroom for the franchise's young core, an environment where developing players would have the rare opportunity to learn daily from two of the most meticulous, experienced, and intellectually advanced athletes the sport has seen, absorbing knowledge that could shape the identity of the team long after those 3 seasons conclude. Training sessions would transform from routine practice into masterclasses in movement, timing, and basketball intelligence, as Curry demonstrates the precise art of off-ball relocation and split-second shot creation, while Durant offers direct insight into reading defenses, exploiting matchups, and executing with lethal accuracy under the most intense pressure imaginable. Across the league, reactions range from disbelief to cautious admiration, because if such a partnership were to come to fruition, it would represent not only a tactical powerhouse, but also an emotional and historical moment, a convergence of talent and ambition that evokes memories of the most dominant super team constructions in league history, only now forged in a city known more for quiet excellence than glamorous recruiting. The concept of a 3-season window adds an extra layer of tension and urgency, as each campaign would carry the feeling of a limited-time phenomenon, 3 years in which every game, every playoff series, every possession would matter in shaping a legacy that could echo across decades, fueling anticipation for immediate impact rather than long-term promise. San Antonio's coaching staff, known for its cerebral approach to the game, would be presented with a rare and exhilarating challenge, integrating 2 creative, high-usage offensive geniuses into a framework that has always prioritized teamwork and cohesion, potentially crafting an entirely new blueprint for how star power and system basketball can coexist at the highest level. National broadcasts would inevitably gravitate toward the Spurs, turning their schedule into a series of must-see events, as viewers around the world tune in not simply to watch a game, but to observe history being either validated or rewritten each night, bringing fresh evidence of whether this legendary pairing can reach its ultimate potential in unfamiliar colors. Merchandise demand, tourism, media presence, and international interest would surge, as the symbols of Curry and Durant alongside the iconic Spurs logo create a visual narrative too powerful to ignore, attracting fans who have followed their journeys independently and now find themselves drawn to a singular, unified story unfolding in Texas. Yet beyond the business and spectacle, what truly fuels the fascination is the basketball itself. The theatrical promise of seeing Curry pull defenders far beyond the arc while Durant exploits open lanes and mismatches created by that attention, a deadly symphony of spacing and execution that could redefine the aesthetic and effectiveness of offensive basketball for an entire generation. There would be no easy answer for opposing teams, no single defender capable of neutralizing this threat, as any focus placed on Curry's range would inevitably give Durant the space he requires to operate, and any attempt to contain Durant would open corridors of freedom that Curry has spent his entire career punishing with ruthless precision. For supporters of the Spurs, long accustomed to a patient and loyal journey, this moment feels almost like a reward for years of perseverance, as if the organization's consistent integrity and stability have finally manifested into an opportunity that others only dare to imagine, turning San Antonio into the epicenter of a narrative that transcends the sport itself. Even former players and legends associated with the franchise have reportedly expressed a mixture of pride and astonishment of the possibility, recognizing that such a move would not erase the team's history, but rather build upon it, layering a new chapter filled with unexpected drama and once-in-a-lifetime star alignment. The idea of Kevin Durant and Stephen Curry, once united elsewhere in dominant fashion, now potentially resurrecting that chemistry in a Spurs uniform, adds an almost cinematic dimension to the rumor, as fans reflect on past glory and wonder whether a similar level of dominance could be reborn within a different structure, guided by a different philosophy, yet driven by the same insatiable desire to win. Their combined experience in finals, pressure-packed moments, and historical achievements would instantly elevate the mental fortitude of the entire locker room, setting a new baseline for what is considered acceptable, expected, and demanded, especially when the stakes rise and the lights grow brighter during the postseason. Every opposing arena would become a theater of reaction, filled with both awe and hostility, as most super teams are, yet it is precisely that tension, that emotional electricity, which makes such a scenario so compelling, so irresistibly attractive to those who crave the drama and unpredictability of elite competition. Meanwhile, analysts continue to dissect every available hint, examining social media gestures, travel patterns, and coded remarks, attempting to piece together whether these whispers signify a genuine forthcoming reality or simply a momentary intersection of excitement and imagination, fueled by hope and ambition on all sides. Regardless of the outcome, the enthusiasm generated by this potential double signing has already re-energized the Spurs narrative, injected life into their identity, and reminded the world that in professional basketball, the most extraordinary turns often begin as unimaginable ideas quietly forming in the background. And so, as anticipation continues to rise and the basketball world waits for clarity, San Antonio stands at the center of a storm of speculation, possibility, and wonder, knowing that even the suggestion of Stephen Curry and Kevin Durant arriving together for 3 defining seasons has already altered the emotional landscape of the league. If the rumors crystallize into reality, the next 3 years would not simply be seasons of competition, but an era etched into the sports mythology, defined by 2 giants walking the same path in the same uniform, fueled by one city's belief and the unyielding drive to transform an already storied franchise into something truly eternal. Until the final word is spoken and the contracts are undeniably signed, what remains is an atmosphere charged with dreams, debate, and expectation, a reminder that in basketball, as in life, sometimes the mere possibility of greatness is enough to make the world stop, stare, and hold its breath in collective anticipation. That's it for today's update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay on top of every exclusive San Antonio Spurs news drop, make sure to subscribe and hit that like button. And don't forget, your opinion matters to Spurs Nation. Share your thoughts in the comments below. See you in the next video.